Hey guys, it's Dan with the Corporate Thief Beats. You're watching a beat making tutorial video, and this is going to be a Drake slash Bryson Tiller type beat. And this is just me showcasing how I made my beat. And this was on one of my beat tapes, the All or Nothing beat tape. And it seems to be a common type beat that I really like to make. It's got like heavy synth. It's a very busy verse type synth, and then the chorus is a lot quieter. Now Drake and Bryson Tiller tend to do this a lot. Their verses and their pre-verses seem to be very busy, and it's kind of like a slow paced trap type synth beat, really. I usually call it electro trap. That's the way I kind of coined the term of that. And I'm going to follow the same format that I usually do. I'm going to show you the intro. I'm going to talk about some of the synths that are used in the intro. Then I'm going to talk about some of the drums and etc. that are used in the verses. And I'll kind of break each section down. I won't go too into detail on what mixing and all that, but I'll take a look at some of the synths that I actually used. And I'll talk about how I created each section in the instrumentation. So we'll just start off with the intro. I'll just play a slight bit of it. Okay. Okay, that's the intro, and you can see it's pretty self-explanatory. There's nothing really to it. There's a nice kind of arpy type synth in the middle of it there that kind of really kind of drones through the track. You can kind of hear that squeaking around. You can hear a really round 808 sub bass in the background as well, and you can hear kind of ear candy kind of spatial sounds in there. Now this is very common in Drake and Bryson Tiller type beats. They seem to make tracks very busy with very minimal sounds. This is a common element in trap music, but there's still a lot of things going on there. But I tend to kind of mask the quietness with arp sounds and kind of pad sounds that tend to leave the space, because I don't want to fuck it up for the singer. I really want it to be really spacious for them to kind of shine in the track, but I still want to show that it's not empty as well. Sometimes some trap beats are just too empty and there's not much of a melody, but you can hear what's in this in here. So we'll start off with the main synths. I'll just get into the kind of crux of it. 1 second now, we'll find. So these two synths here, 1 second now. And I'll show you the MIDI notes that's in it. And you can hear what they sound like. We'll drag this window bar down, 1 second now. And we'll drag this back up. Okay. And we'll play it from here. Now this is a kind of synth that you would hear in a lot of the earlier kind of Drake type beats. Yeah, you would really like any kind of ones that Boy Wonder did and stuff like that, or T minus, that kind of synth. It's kind of got a lot of, we'll take a look, it's got some reverb on it already. It's a massive synth. It's called Analogica and Too Much Space. So I've layered synths, simple kind of up and down scale melody, nothing too complicated. So we'll just listen to the massive synth first. It's called Anatolia. So it's like a screaming arp. It's kind of like a screaming arp, but it's very metronomic. It kind of hits right on the beat. Dun, 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 dun. And it's got a lot of reverb in there as well, which kind of, you can see that I busted out to some reverbs as well. and I use a spreader then to kind of just even out the mix as well. And then I kind of layered that with the same melody again with another synth from Massive called Too Much Space. That actually sounds a lot better when it's even actually on its own. You could actually flip that sample around and actually make something pretty cool. But you can hear what's actually in it. It sounds like something that's very high reverb, but it sounds like more of like percussion more than it sounds like instrumentation. But together they sound really nice. So there's a nice bit of delay in that Too Much Space synth as well. And if you look at the EQ, you can see that I've rolled off a load of the the low section, and I boosted a little bit at the high, and I probably took out a lot of anything below 7K just to. A second, I'll broaden that screen just to make it a little bit better for you guys to see. I took a lot of more out of 7K as well, just because I felt there was something interfering with that sound. I just liked that sound on its own. But together they sound really good together. Yeah, and if you look at that now together, this is the hard thing about beat making. It's not actually about the instrumentation, how good you are playing. It's how hard it is to find stuff that gels so well together, and how to be disciplined to build on small things. So I liked that initial sound, but it sounds repetitive. It sounds very clean. That's one good thing that I look for. If I can't make it clean enough, I'll kind of move on. I'll make something new. But once I get two sounds to gel so well together, I'll build on it. And I put in this extra sound as well. And these play throughout the verse, but we'll get to the verse in a few minutes. And that's called Kruntes Orbit. And that's another massive synth. And that's similar to what's actually played in the two previous synths, but this time it's much slower. So this is what is a really cool effect within it. It kind of plays a counter to the original one. So the first one is kind of like really fast and percussive, whereas this next one then is really slow. And it kind of acts almost like the bass. And just to take a look at the EQ, obviously it's got some bust out to effects as well, some reverbs. But if you look at the EQ, you can see that I've rolled off anything nearly around 100 hertz. And I've scooped out some frequencies that I just didn't like. And I think a lot of the frequencies above 10K or 3K were just interfering with these synthesizers. I just kind of wanted this to act as a base of the track, so that's the main element of it. And then just to hide any kind of quietness within the track, I use two pad sounds that tend to sound like this. And they're very, very quiet. You would barely notice them. But together, they just bring an air of, an element of more going on in the song without adding another melody into it. And everything sounds very clean. Everything sounds very clean. Everything is gelling together so well. And that's the really hard thing with beat making, is finding sounds that gel so well together. So moving on, I'll just before I go, they were both sorry, ad, additivum, additivum or something like that it's called, and they're both in massive. And again, you can see what I did with the EQ just to kind of create their own space. I really kind of EQ'd a lot of them. I only wanted the very lot of the mids. I think the same for the second synth as well. You can see that I did kind of a little bit more of a scoop. I scooped out a lot of 2K because it's probably interfering with the top two synths. And when we kind of move into the next section of the intro, the sub bass comes in. But before I'll do that, I'll just actually take a look at these two synths here, what these do. And we'll see what these do now. And I'll just move everything out and just play these on their own. And it's just accentuating these synths here. That's all it is. It's just you barely hear these synths in the background, this ethereal and this ensemble blow. And this is a kind of a technique that I tend to use a lot with strings, not necessarily with synthesizers, but a lot of the time with strings, I will kind of play extra notes, or I'll double up the string section and play these little notes within the riff that I'm already playing. And it just makes certain notes pop a little bit more, and it also gives them a little bit more fullness to the track. So let's just listen to all these pieces together. It's just very subtle, but it just makes, I think it makes a big difference. I can really hear the difference. And then this huge sub bass comes in. Now this probably took a while to kind of mix. You can see that I rolled off a lot of the highs from 500 hertz offwards. I took out a little scoop a little bit there for my kick, and I rolled off any kind of too much sub at the top end. Also, I stuck on overdrive. Overdrive is a plugin. It's kind of like a distortion plugin, and the synth is in a stock synth within Logic called Alchemy. Alchemy is an amazing synthesizer. There's so much stuff in there, and you can see that it's bust out, and I'll just show you what it's bust out to. It's bust out to its own parallel compression. I'll get to that in a few minutes. I won't talk about that just yet, and we'll just take a look at the bass, what it sounds like. You can hear how round it is. It's a very round bass. But you can hear what the distortion is doing as well. The distortion is making it a little bit darker, a little bit more grittier, because it's hard to kind of hear sub bass unless you have the good speakers. So it's always a good idea to stick some overdrive or some distortion on there so you can hear just a little bit of that drive through it. And plus, I love these kind of bass sounds. And you can see that I have two different, so this bass plays in the quiet sections. In the verses, I actually have an 808. And we'll just move on to the verse now. And I'm sure you guys want to hear the kicks and the snares. So we'll get into the drums now, the verse. So we'll just play the verse first. It's a bit hot. I'll just move it down there in case you guys are hearing it a bit too hot here. And second now. Okay, and we'll just play this kick drum first, and we'll take a look at the MIDI that I have. And it's not anything complicated, so we'll just play that kick drum on its own. This was just a drag and drop sample that I popped into Ultra Beat in Logic, nothing too complicated. Rolled off little bits here and there, and didn't really tinker with it too much. I kind of like the sound with it. And then the snare. These are kind of drums that I collected over a period of time. Some of the drums are from Producer's Choice, some are from Modern Drums or Modern Producers. There's a bunch of different sites. There's actually a page on my site with a bunch of sites to drum kits if you guys need any of them or any of the tools that I use in any of these tutorials. Snare, we'll take in the snare. And there's nothing complicated about that drum pattern. Very simple. Hats come in. So we just a little bit of a roll here. But it matches really well with the beat. Hi-hats come in. And then the sub bass comes in again. It's kind of more of an 808 sub bass. And I made this in ES2 overdrive. And you can see I've got the overdrive, I've got channel EQ, linear EQ on there. That's the thing I tend to do a lot with certain instruments that are giving me a hard time, especially with sub sounds. I'll kind of double up, stack up those EQs on it just to make sure that I'm really cutting out frequencies that I don't want. So again, rolled off a lot of that and rolled off the top end as well. And you can see I made slight cuts here and there to improve the accentuation of the kick. And that's really it for the verse so far. A second now. And you can see, 1 second, we'll just play all of it again together so you get a drift of it again. So the verse is a lot more busy than the hook, and I'll get to the hook in a few minutes. There's not much to the hook, and that's really the crux of the beat. There's nothing really else throughout the track. Everything I've shown you now, all the instruments are what's in the beat. This, you can see that I take out little sections here and there, so you can see I've taken out some of the instruments, and these kind of just come in and out of the track. It happens throughout the track. That's a lot of the thing that I do, is just removing some instrumentation. And this is not actually the hook, this section here. This is actually what I would call a pre-chorus or pre-verse. And this section here is actually the hook. Then again, it's entirely up to the artist. The reason why I was doing that, so it's basically all the instrumentation coming in together and playing together. And this would be the hook in my opinion. The reason why I say this is because Drake and Bryson Tiller tend to do this a lot in their tracks, where the hook is very quiet and they sing during this section, and where the verses are very busy. You can see my 808s being very busy throughout the whole track, or not my 808s, but my hats are being very busy throughout the track, and the synths are as well, coming in and out. And that's the really way that I created this track. We'll just listen to what I played in the hook. And that's really the crux of the beat. There's nothing really else throughout. It took me a while to mix it. There is very heavy laden synths in the track, so heavy synth-based tracks are very hard to mix sometimes. But then again, sometimes instrumentation tracks are pretty big. One thing I will show you is that I did use parallel compression on my kick, my drums, my bass. So that's something I do a lot. Instead of jacking the sound up or putting compressors throughout the whole mix, I tend to just bus a lot of stuff to a certain section where I believe it needs compression. Sometimes I'll put it on here, but a lot of the time I'll stick it on here in the parallel compression and mix it my raw sound. So my kick is bussed to this bus here, and I put some compression on, and it's very heavy compression. We'll just play the track and just see the compressor in work. And it's very heavy compression. You can see that it's got a ratio of 5:1. It's minus 15 dB. I really like this sound on my kick, this VCA compressor. The compressors within Logic are amazing, but not every sound is going to work for every kick. Sometimes you just have to tweak it, and depending how you mixed your bass as well is really important. And that's really it. I didn't really do anything crazy else with that. It took me a while to mix. You see over here just my VCA faders, so I just kind of align all my tracks to VCA faders so I can kind of control it like a mixing desk and have my groups. Before you used to use groups, so you can still do it within Logic, but I tend to use the VCA faders now, which is just a habit I got into. And I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. If there's something I'm letting out in this video, don't forget to hesitate to ask. There is one thing I want to do before I go, and you see that I have the freeze track section on this video. If you want, because I had a lot of problems with latency issues, this time I figured out how to solve the problem, and I usually freeze the tracks. And what I usually do is I right click on that, go to configure header, and that will bring up the freeze track button. Press the freeze track button here on all the tracks, then press play. It will render all the tracks. It kind of makes an audio copy of it within the system. What I think it does anyway. I'm not sure if that's correct. If I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong. I don't mind. But it uses a lot less CPU, and I haven't had as many latency issues. Usually what most people do is go in and change the buffer. You can do that, but I tried that a number of times and I still had issues. Maybe it's the fact that I have a lot of stuff on my computer now, and it's getting to that stage where I'm gonna have to sacrifice what stuff are on my computer. But I hope that this freeze track tutorial will help you with latency issues. This was Dan with the Corporate Thief Beats. Don't forget, like, share, and subscribe, and I'll check you out in the next video, guys. Take care. Bye.